let's take a look at some things you can customize. One of them is custom fields. So when you go to add in a circuit, you might notice, this has some of the basics, just not everything that you might use. So if we go to custom fields, this kind of explains a little bit about what you can do. So for example, you could add your own field dedicated to your ISP links and say a DMARC ID. So if I go to add this, and we will call it, let's see, we'll just pick one. Now you have different types of data that you can save it as. So text, text area, number, a boolean, or a select. If you choose a select, you would just populate this area with your options. So option 1, option 2, and it will save it as a drop down for you, or we'll just do text. You can also have help, and we will say something like all right. So now we hit save. Now you have this. So you have an ISP DMARC ID for Lumen. Let's add another one. So let's just say I want to group a bunch of items to something like a trunk ID. So we can call it fiber. And these are all customizable. You use whatever you want. And we can group these. So we'll call this data center. We'll save that. And we're going to change this as well. We're going to group this as ISP. You can reorder the way these look as far as which ones you see first. Otherwise, it's default as alphabetical order. So now, when you go to add a fiber circuit or any circuit at all, you'll see custom fields. And these groups are useful if you have, multiple groups and you want to quick jump to one. Now, when you go to refresh this page, you'll see search references here. You'll be able to break it down at, when you go to search, it'll give you kind of an autocomplete for everything. Or if you're not sure and say this thing gets a little unwieldy with a bunch of different searches or different columns and whatnot, you can click on the drop down arrow for this. This will give you a list of everything that you can search by. So for example, you can search by a trunk ID, you can search by DMARC ID, and if you put this value in this search box, this will let you narrow the search to you searching just this value for whatever. And all you have to do is click this and it will fill this out for you, and you type in whatever you want to search for. Now, if you also want to just search here, because like I said, this could get unwieldy after a bit, you can search for trunks. For example, you get fiber trunks and now you fill it out. Your endpoint kinds. These are the different types of things you can plug stuff into. These are populated with the more popular ones that I could think of. You can also add a new one if you want. Once you save it, it'll be here, and again, you can kind of move these around if you want them in a different order. And these will show up when you go to fill out a circuit ID. And you say pick your endpoints. So now you can have whatever this port might be, or this one. So if I'm connecting to a camera, for example. Serve IDs, delete by custom, deleted circuits. You can also see any circuits that you might have deleted, and you'll have the option to restore them or permanently delete them. If, by the way, you go to create another circuit that has this same circuit ID, it will not let you do that. This has to be deleted first, or you could restore it and edit it. It's to prevent conflict, in case you ever do restore it or you're missing something. Now you have your circuit type identifiers. I explained this in the other video, but just to go over it one more time, if you were to say label a cable with like a number, this would be the identifier. So you might say CAM and then some number, you know, like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Same for this one. Or if you have something like 2TB as a number scheme, then you might have 2TB 900, etc. And that's it for some of the customizations. All right. So I want to go over the rest of the basics on the wiring database. So what you'll notice, under the unmanaged devices profile, I added another item for a list of wall jacks. You'll see why at this point. But basically, I'm just using this as a list of jacks for, say, my lab 1. So I'll have a list of these here. So if you want to see kind of how the wiring database ties into how you can view your equipment, the first place we'll go to after we set everything up was the rack wiring review. And we want to go find the rack that we set up. So right now you'll see everything that we placed here, and you can tell that there's nothing wired to this particular one yet because it doesn't have anything associated with any of the ports. If you click on each of these devices, it'll give you all of the interfaces that are associated with them. And then if you collapse this screen, you'll get all of these. So this will pull the information off the box if it's discovered live. So you'll see items like the latest interface description. If this is a box that you're using as a placeholder that's unmanaged for now, you'll have to put those descriptions in under the unmanaged profile. So just for starters, so let's say we want to wire up this CCTV port. We can go over here to add wiring. And just like before, we'll have our circuit type identifiers. So for this one, I built out CAM. And then I'm going to let it assign the next available number, or you can type your own. This comes into play when you want to request a bunch of bulk IDs as well. So say if you're pre-planning a building and you want to wire up ahead of time or plan out the wiring, you can do that. You can set your status, your service type, whatever you want to put here. I'm just going to toss camera. You can fill out this if you want. Some of this can be auto pulled from the device. Right now it's not. Optional length of the cable. And if you want to toss in a subnet that, say, that particular device is put under, you just need to make sure that it's a legitimate subnet, otherwise it's going to error on you. And then if you want to leave an optional VLAN, otherwise eventually it will pull the port configs off of that. Now under our endpoints, this is where we can go into placing what it's connected to. This is pre-filled in, and once you click on the device, it'll pull in all the information that it learns. For here, for the endpoint, let's say I'm wiring this to a camera, and it's not discovered in the system, so I'm just going to put it here. And then we'll just say Ethernet 1. If your cameras are discovered on the network, eventually you can just place them in the same area via a naming convention or whatnot, and it'll group them for you. Or there's an option to group, say, a certain subnet into certain areas. So if you break out your buildings by subnet, you can do that as well and just say, hey, any devices on this IP scope belong to this building and room, etc. You can fill out all of this if you'd like. Now, because we know you can't wire, well, not a lot of places wire direct from the router to wherever it's going, or without going through something like a patch panel. If you do have those, you can go into the connections area and fill that in. This is where placing all of those port profiles and unmanaged devices comes into play. So now if I want to tell this that it's wired through a patch panel, I'm going to say it's going through my Ethernet patch. And that's the name. Now this exit device port is only if it's going out another interface on that particular patch, or so if it's going out of a common fiber patch or whatnot, or say if you're going into an ONS shelf on the same card but you're leaving the same field or the same card to a different field port, you can add that. Now let's just say it's going to go from this patch panel to one of those connectors. So we can go through and pick our wall jacks and just say we'll pick one. Again, exit port is optional. It's only if you're going to go out and hit to another port. So when you fill these in, it's going to go into the order that you fill it in. So it should say patch panel first, wall jack next. If by chance this is incorrect, you can just reorder these. Now if you want to look over at the wiring map, this will give you kind of a group on how this goes. So this will go from the device to the exit port on the A side, the intermediate device. It'll give you the information on that particular one, and then so on and so forth till you get to the end. You can full screen this if you need to. Or down here, it'll give you all the information off of that, just in easier form. Custom fields comes into play when we want to fill out those the information that we built before. So if this was say an ISP circuit, we could put the ISP interface here, or the DMARC ID, or if it was a trunk ID, we could do that. You could even add another one for, say, camera groupings or whatnot. There's also a history tab, so if somebody saves this or edits it, so if I go to save this and then I go back to that same page, this will show that it was created. Now let's say if I want to change something and I add a provider, you can go back, look at the history of what was changed, and you can restore it to the previous one. All right. So what we'll do is we'll go back to our rack wiring preview and we'll refresh it to see what it looks like now. So now we can see that we have a wired connection here and we have a wired connection off the patch panel, and this is both with the same circuit ID that we just created. So CAM001. You can also export these as either a CSV or pull the JSON data off. Hey, just a quick edit. When I was going over this before, I noticed some random display bugs and some options, and I wanted to add to this, so just to quickly go over that. I did correct the view issue where it looked kind of odd when I was looking up the wire map. So it kind of standardizes a little bit. Instead of arrows, it's just a straight shot line that's horizontal. Gives you the same room or the same info for each room and each hop. Also, under the history, I added a view section so you can view the changes as well. So if I wanted to look at, say, when this was created, I can see the changes where it says everything that was, not set. Obviously, it's created. Or the next time when I changed, say, the circuit provider, and so on and so forth. So you can see what was changed before you restore them. That's all I wanted to add. We'll stick this in the center of the video. Sorry, not a professional video editor, so this may go all over the place. And edit to add another update / display fix I noticed. When you're searching by custom fields, the table should update with the custom field that you're searching, but it wasn't doing it. It was updating, but it wasn't generating the columns. So like if I was to look up that custom camera field, then you'll see now that you have cameras grouping and the value for that. Hopefully that's it for tonight. Now you could do the same thing for these patch panels. Since these are they're unmanaged and they're here for a placement or just to as a placeholder, you can go in here and plan out everything that you want to do. So see how these are, there's no latest interface descriptions, and then the internet or the Ethernet ports are all generic. If you know what ones you're looking for, once you put the box in, you can just populate the ones you're looking for. And then eventually, if you were to go back to let's see, if you were to go back to here and say you added this network device in, as long as you put the same exact name under here for this device when you placed it into the system, you can remove this as an unmanaged device, discover it, put the new one in, and it should populate all the existing data. So let's say if we go back to that wiring database, just as another example, and we do want to reserve a bunch of circuits. And just to touch on the custom fields, I have this in another video, I believe. But if you wanted to add your custom field, you can. So if I added another custom field like cameras grouping, and we will just say this is under cameras, and just for giggles, if we change this to say a drop down, we could say inside, outside, data center, etc. If I were to go and edit this, or even when I create a new one, under the custom fields, you'll have this label here. So let's just say this was an inside camera. I save this. This search box has been altered so you can search based off of just about anything, as long as you know the name of what you're looking for, and it'll pre-fill out most of them for you. Any custom fields that you put in, you can actually look under the search reference, go find the one you're looking for, so like cameras, or if this list gets large, you can go through and filter out here. Now normally you would just take and type this into the search box and then you fill out what you're looking for, or you can click here, it'll do that for you. And let's say I want to search for inside, that'll bring up any inside cameras. If I want to search for outside, there's nothing there. But this just helps you so you don't have to remember all of these. There is also autocomplete. So if you do custom fields, you go down and pick the one you want, right? Let's just say we want to reserve a bunch of circuit IDs. Or before we do that, the endpoint kinds as well. You can actually change or edit and add to these. So if you want to add something else that I might have missed, you can go ahead and do that. But if I want to reserve a bunch of IDs, and let's just say I'm going to reserve some fiber IDs. And I want 100 of these. Just put in some sort of note if you want. It'll make it easier to search by if you're going to look them up later. And just say you have like a couple 100,000 entries in here, you want to filter them out. So we'll call this order number 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. You can fill out all of these as you want. So let's just say these are planned. You can leave these if you want. If you go to edit full template, you can fill out as much of this information as you can ahead of time. So let's just say all of these are going to go to some trunk ID 001A. We'll call it that. Then you can again fill out all of this stuff ahead of time. Don't touch some of this. You can put whatever you want. These endpoints you can leave for now because you'll end up assigning them later. Same thing for connections, and then wire maps will get filled in individually. And then use this as a shared template, and then we'll click reserve. So now we have all these fiber IDs that are going to be reserved, and you can fill out other information here if you would like. You don't have to do it here, but it just gives you the option to. And then create reserve circuit. So now you have all of these reserved circuits. And again, remember, you can narrow your search. So if I want to pull everything that was reserved under that fiber circuit or that trunk group, we would do 001A. And now this will give you every one of your circuit IDs. And then you just go ahead and plan whatever you want. So if I wanted to stick this under, say, as a placeholder, stick it on my lab box, I can. I'll stick it here. You can fill out all this if you want. Add in any connections you want, kind of review the wiring. There are a few display bugs I'm going to have to work out apparently. And then if I were to go back into my hardware inventory, I'm sorry, my rack wiring view, I can see that some of these are already in the system when I add them. And in the future, depending on if you use the templating engine, I don't have any videos on this yet. Once this device is online, you can build a template to go out and configure this however you want. That'll be for another video, but for the most part there is a template engine here that you can create your own configlets. So if this box gets discovered on a specific room, it can go out and update it, configure whatever you want for it, and all that other fun stuff. So I will cut it off about here. The next one I want to go over is how you kind of onboard your own data. So just as a quick brief intro to it, you know, this is great, but what if I want to onboard all of my data without having to you know, do it one by one? So just as a system, let me show you too, is you can delete by custom field as well. So if I do fiber, oops, trunk ID, (001A), soft delete, case insensitive. We can preview the matches of what we're going to delete, and then we can delete them. And you can also see all of those items here. So if you want to restore them all, you can. You can either do one at a time, or you can select all of these and restore, or I can just permanently delete them. This one will wipe them out completely. But let's just say I want to import my own data. I can import my own CSV file, and then I can download or I can bulk import. Sorry, this will download a template based off of how you have this set up. So it'll give you a CSV file and tell you how you want to fill it out. You can upload your own CSV files, and then you can create yourself a mapping. So I'll go over this next, but essentially you upload your CSV file, map whichever columns you want by drag and drop to match the server, and then from there it'll just import all of your CSV data into the database on the columns that you tell it you want it to. But I'll go over that later because that's a little bit longer. Right now this was just a short intro to some of the things this can do. All right, thanks.